Hello and welcome to Kicking Tires. My name is Jimmy,
And I'm Justin.
and we got some news today with Acura teasing us again with the Integra. Chevy showed us a picture of the Z06, a bunch of stuff for the Grand Cherokee non-L, so the shorter version. And we have some news also about Rolls-Royce and Subaru information as well. But let's get started with Acura, because they once again teased us with the Integra. It was announced, what was it, like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. I said that it's very likely the Integra is going to be some sort of 5-door hatchback, maybe a Grand Coupe type vehicle. And hey, look what we have here, a 5-door hatchback Integra, exactly what I called.
Yeah, and in Acura's press release, they even the first picture is this that we've seen this week. It looks kind of like the Audi Sportback. The second picture in their press release is from 1986, so what's that, 35 years ago? The Acura Integra RS 5-door. So has Acura been around that long? 35 years? Holy crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not new to them to do the hatchback. I think even the DC2, they don't call it a DC2, but
DC2 and DC5 were both hatches. Yes.
Yeah, and you could get those in a 4-door, 5-door hatch too.
Yeah, the DC2 you can, but not.
Yeah, not the RS6.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is, some people think Integra. I think to our generation or the younger generation, maybe that weren't around when the DC2 was kind of the hot car to get. To them, Integra is the Type R, the DC2R, the RS6. What we have here is an RS6, the DC5. But Integra is really kind of like a tarted up Civic in a sense.
Yeah, it basically is.
Right, and that's what it was. That's what the basis for this car was, and so we're expecting pretty much the same out of this new one. We don't know exactly what the underpinnings are, how the drivetrain configuration is, but we have pretty good guesses. Yeah,
we do have pretty good guesses. It's going to be a Civic-based vehicle because it has to be. It wouldn't be based on a TLX.
The proportions are just right to be. Based on the 11th gen Civic.
On Reddit, someone put the image of the press release onto basically a camoed version of the Integra, and seeing it here, it basically looks like the 11th gen Civic, except in a longer hatchback, not the shorter hatchback that you can get as a Civic, but maybe a little bit longer, because the tail portion definitely looks longer than the hatchback that's on the Civic. Roofline looks similar. I don't think it's much shorter than that, so I don't think it's like full-on sportback type styling, but it looks similar.
And it definitely, we were talking about it last week when we were talking about the pricing of the new Civic hatchback. The Acura version looks a lot better. It's just the way the curves and the taillights resolve is a lot better than that new 11th gen Civic. The 11th gen looks a little bit taller, a little bit more practical, but a little bit stubbier. This one a little bit more stretched out and very much an Audi. The rear 3/4 window is very Audi. The way it's drawn.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that people are speculating right now is just the pricing of it. So here's the thing: top model of the Civic hatch is 38, I think it was. Could be wrong. I can't remember exactly how much it was. I think it was like 38. 35, which means that the Integra, not the base, but one that you probably want to get, it's probably close to 40. The base is probably like 35. So it should range like the Integra, I'm thinking like you can get a base model at like 35 or so, and then the top range, the A spec, about 45. That's where I'm thinking that sweet spot would be for the Integra.
I'm curious if they're gonna do like super handling all-wheel drive as standard.
I don't think it's going to be a standard. I think on the base model, it's going to be optional. Sorry, it's going to be the 1.5 turbo that's in the Civic going to front wheel drive with the CVT, or maybe they'll do a 6-speed because it's available in the Civic. So it's not hard for them to convert over. Putting super handling all-wheel drive, though, it's going to be hard for them. I don't know if they have the R&D to actually put, that, because
aside from the ILX, everything else is super handling all-wheel drive now, right?
Yeah, so the TLX, the RDX, and whatnot. So if they are going to be lifting an engine, it's going to be from either the TLX or the RDX. I mean, it makes sense for them to lift it out of TLX, but that will just be like, why don't you just buy the TLX set?
Yeah, so the TLX starts at 44,600, but that comes with super handling all-wheel drive standard now. So
2-liter turbo.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if they want to differentiate kind of the Acura brand, not just having kind of their own look, but actually having their own kind of unique powertrain. I think that would be a good way to do it. I think they can, because CRV is...
CRV is a standard all-wheel drive system. It wouldn't be the same rear
but the architecture and the subframes and stuff, I think, would all... I don't see it being that big of an obstacle to evolve it into an all-wheel drive version of the Integra. I mean, who knows? They may want to do like a Type S version, and a Type S version could be the drivetrain from the TLX, because that would make sense. A 2-liter turbo with the super handling all-wheel drive. It makes sense for that, but that is the Civic Type R that we've always wanted.
It could be a grown-up version of the Civic Type R.
Maybe bring back the Type R, Type S nameplate.
The Type S nameplate. Yep, absolutely.
There was never an Integra Type S, though, was there?
No, back then it was just Type R. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on.
No. Acura trademarked the Type S recently. Right, we talked about this.
Well, they have it. They have the Type S for the TLX and the MDX, so it could come to the Integra. It could, rather than just the A spec. A spec would just be the looks of it. Type S would have the actual performance goodies.
Yeah, but we're talking over 50,000 at that point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And at that point, do you really want one?
I mean. Okay, look at the Type R, the demand on the Civic Type R, right?
Yeah, but the Civic Type R is different because it's all fanboys buying it. Let's be honest.
When it came out, everyone's like, I'm not paying $50,000 for a Civic. Because when it came out, people were like, okay, well, Golf R starts at 42. And the base model Type R, also with a 16 manual, started at like 45. Started a little bit higher than a Golf R here in Canada, at least. In the US, it was actually the other way around. The Golf R was more expensive, but I don't think, I think the Integra name does have some value to it that will also trigger those same fanboys. That's the only reason the Civic Type R has so many fanboys, is because of the Integra Type R. Here in North America, at least.
Yeah, but a lot of the current Civic Type R owners are buying it because of, the demand for it. They're buying it because it's a collectible.
Collectible. I mean, they make so many of them.
Yeah, but a lot of people are treating it as collectible. How many of those yellow ones do you see posting up for $100,000?
Yeah, they've come down a little bit to 80 now, but yes. It's the same thing, because you know why they think they're so collectible. DC2R. it all comes back to DC2R. So there's no reason the Acura badge is not an obstacle.
No.
It's because everyone saw, okay, if you have a clean 40,000 kilometer all original Acura Integra Type R, not a Honda, but the left-hand drive Acura Integra Type R, that is worth its weight in gold in today's dollars.
Yeah.
Do I think it's worth it? No, because it's not that amazing of a driving experience by any standard, and you could buy a $2,000 GSR and build it up to surpass it with another $2,000. But but yeah, everyone is speculating based on the Integra Type R, and the Integra Type R, I think, defined not just the reason the FK8 is deemed to be collectible, but many sports cars and modern classics, I think, are based in how well cars like the Integra Type R and the Mark IV Supra, how those cars kind of more, they're not that exotic, but look at how they've appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's be honest. Every single vehicle on the market right now has appreciated.
Oh, right now, anything. You can have a Caravan and it's worth more than it was last year.
My CRV is technically worth more now than when I bought it.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to me. But hey, if anyone wants a CRV, let me know. Moving on to that Corvette. So the Instagram here, they dropped the photo of the 2023 Corvette Z06. So the C8 version of the Z06. And I think it looks quite aggressive.
Yeah, the wide body is quite apparent on the front fender, and then also on the door and the 3/4 panel. So if you pull up a picture of the normal C8, you'll notice they don't have that kind of black accent above the vent just behind the rear door, and that's just kind of to blend in that much wider rear. I think it looks so much better. I don't like the way the normal C8 looks. You put wheels on, the front wheels are always too narrow, which they've now fixed because you've got wider front fenders. You can see where that bulge is. The car looks like it's doing a chubby bunny challenge because it's just kind of like got these little fat cheeks, but it looks good in its own way. Don't get me wrong. It does look a little bit NSX. The front bumper does look a little bit NSX, but it also looks C8R.
Also looks a little Senna.
Yeah.
Like on the sides, especially how it has that kind of crease there. It just reminds me of that. But I also see like remnants of the older versions of the Camaro, like the Z01 in there, of how like the front splitter
opening. Yeah,
it just looks very similar to that. I think it's a lovely vehicle, like overall. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but how attainable is it?
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, MSRP versus right now the market is crazy. So let's talk when the market kind of normalizes a little bit, when supply gets back up. This car, I mean, the C8, the normal C8 MSRP was basically in line with the C7. Not a big departure from that. So we should expect these to start in kind of the low 100,000 range, which even now a C8 3LT is going for well over 100,000 for a used one. So yeah, realistically, people are going to be asking like 200K for these, but but MSRP wise, I think we're still going to be in the lower half of the 100,000. But
at 200K, it's like, do you want this?
At 200K, it is still a good value.
Yeah,
I think so.
But okay, so in a perspective of performance, I would 100% agree with you. But if we're talking about the name brand itself, 200K, there's other things that you can buy that are maybe more exotic than a Chevrolet.
At 200K in today's market, right? It's a little bit different just because a used Cayman GT4 with no warranty and miles on it is still 130K. What it costs to buy a new one.
I'm pretty sure you can probably pick up a GT3 for 200.
You could last year for sure. An early GT3, yeah, maybe.
Like I'm thinking 991.
991.1 GT3, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, make like the C8 Z06 would be miles faster than the GT3. Let's be honest here, because it's down on power and everything else. But
yeah,
when you tell someone, at a dinner party, be like, "Oh, hey, Justin, what do you drive these days?" Then you say, "Oh, it's a Chevy, but it's a Corvette, and it's a Z06, so it's not like the base model; it's the nicer one." Whereas your neighbor, myself, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I got a Porsche." I don't have to explain.
I don't think. Okay,
I don't
so
have to
a lot
explain
of the
myself.
guys I know, they do appreciate both, and anyone who comes out to the track brings, like, they're on the same level. Saying that you have a Porsche doesn't mean anything anymore, because you might have a base model 718 or you have a V6 Cayenne that's 15 years old. Like, it's not a bragging right anymore to say. Oh, but obviously saying you have a 991 GT3 is, okay, that's a little bit different.
But if someone doesn't know cars, you say you got a Porsche, even if it is a $5,000 V6 Cayenne that you picked up, it has bragging rights.
I don't care what those people think, though. I don't think anyone cares what, like, someone who knows nothing about something, do I care what their thought about that something is? Like, no. Knowing, I see a lot of, like, 911 people now, they're embracing the C8. I think because they went mid-engine, it helped so much with the branding. It looks exotic. That's why their prices have never been at MSRP.
Yeah.
Like, I see so many people speculating on just a normal C8, which I think is not very attractive of a car. That's my gripe with it ultimately. But the Z06 fixes that, and probably we'll get a Grand Sport and a ZR1 in the future. ZR1 is going to be really expensive.
I do agree with you, because, like, if I look at a C8 versus even like a Z51 C7, the C7 just looks more aggressive. Like, just how it looks overall.
Yeah, proportionally, it's like perfect.
Yeah.
It's a FR, like, really sleek coupe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the C8 narrow body, just a little bit awkwardly proportioned, I think. The wide body and the bigger wing, the press photo, or not the press photo, but the photo that Corvette posted on Instagram doesn't have the taller wing. But give it the taller wing and the wide body, and the car it looks so good. Like, the proportions are fixed, and it's really how the car should have came out. I don't know why they have to nerf it with a narrow body to begin with, because it's just an awkward looking car.
There's a little bit of McLaren GT vibe as well. Yeah,
it's not, especially in the small wing configuration, if you cover up, like, the front half of the car, it could definitely fly for something European.
Absolutely. All right, Corvette, if you can afford one.
If you can get your hands on one.
Yeah, let's not talk about affording. Let's just talk about if you can get your hands on one. Yeah, C8 Z06, definitely a worthy contender. But something a little bit more down to earth. Stellantis dropped information of the brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee. So the Grand Cherokee L, that's already been released. You may have actually seen some on the road. The L is about 5 inches longer in wheelbase and in length compared to the regular Cherokee, or Grand Cherokee, I should say. And this is more back to its roots, right? Because Grand Cherokee has always been a 5-passenger SUV. There hasn't really been an L version ever. So this is really where the Grand Cherokee shines. And there's a lot of new stuff on here that makes it quite interesting. But there's also some older stuff which some people may like because it may be more reliable, or some people may not. So let's go into that. First, let's talk about trims.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trims that you can get.
There's a lot of trims, but I guess one of the most important is the 4xe, right? It's what we've seen on the Wrangler already. Those blue accents everywhere. But what's kind of cool about the 4xe? So what it is, it's a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid with 25 miles of all-electric range estimated, and the MPGe, which is kind of a complicated, doesn't mean that much number, is 57 miles per gallon E, with the estimated combined range.
When people ask me to explain that to them, I'm like, you know what? Let me just say that it can do this. Once you run out of electrical range, it's this miles per gallon. It's easier to explain that than giving them an equivalent, which literally never means a thing to anyone.
Because with plug-in hybrid, it's like it's so variable what you will get out of it, because how long your commute is and how much you can realistically get out of a tank is going to matter. Like, it's going to matter so much, and it's going to vary so much from person to person. 25 miles doesn't sound like a lot, but for a lot of us, it is actually enough. And I think statistically, for someone, if you're charging it on an everyday basis, you will barely use any gas, because 25 miles will cover like 90% of people's commutes.
It's decent.
So their estimated combined range is around 700 kilometers with both, but you could easily get more or a lot less. So it's like, but one of the cool things, what I've said, it means next to nothing, but what is kind of cool is that they did the whole Rubicon Trail in full electric mode, which that's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That this kind of mundane SUV, well, not that mundane. There is a Trailhawk 4xe model.
And that's the one they took.
Well. And that's the one they took. So it's a cool SUV, actually. There's the 4xe plug-in hybrid.
And then, so that's the powertrain that you can get, but you can get that on a few different models. You can get that on the Limited. You can get it on the Trailhawk, which is that off-road variant. There's the Overland as well as the Summit trim as well. The Summit is like the new top trim for the Grand Cherokee. It's very, very like fashionable.
Very plush. Macintosh.
Yeah,
is it Macintosh.
It's Macintosh audio system. It takes some of the bits and pieces that were in the Grand Wagoneer and the Wagoneer and kind of just shove that into that Cherokee. I think it looks great. But if you're not a big fan of that, you can still get the Pentastar V6, which I'm going to assume it's a base engine because that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you can get the 5.7 V8 for it. I didn't see any information if you can get the 2-liter as well.
Standalone? I don't believe so. I didn't see anything on that either. So I think it's just those three configurations.
Which is a little weird because the 2-liter is offered right now on a lot of their other vehicles as like the one that's better in terms of fuel efficiency than the Pentastar, but delivers slightly less power but more torque.
But the Pentastar is kind of proven and reliable.
It is.
And the V8 is proven and reliable. The 4xe has that 2-liter turbo that is not so proven yet. But if you made the bold choice to pick a 4xe, you kind of know what you're signing up for, right?
So, okay. One thing I got to say about the 4xe. So I got a chance to drive the 4xe in the Wrangler. And it's okay. So the Wrangler starts off as not like nowhere close to being a sophisticated vehicle. The Grand Cherokee is. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of engineering to make it better. But in the Wrangler, it was not smooth at all. When the hybrid like kind of kicks in, so when the engine kicks in, it was very, very rough. And the electrical motor, while it has enough power, it wasn't great. So if you had it on pure electric, well, just the acceleration from pure electric, it wasn't anywhere near the amount of power that is like it's showing. Because in like combined horsepower, I have it written down somewhere. I don't know where I put it now. Oh, 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque on the 4xe. That's when the both of the electrical motors and the internal combustion engine is working. So like you look at that number, you're like, wow, a lot of that must be from the electrical motor. It really, like, yes, there's quite a bit of it that is, but if you're running on pure electric, it's actually pretty slow.
Well, and the Wrangler has a traditional transfer case, right? Still,
it does.
The 4xe. Whereas, okay, so the Grand Cherokee has 3 different 4x4 systems. They have kind of their normal Quadra-Track 1, and then they have the Quadra-Track 2, which is in the. It's very confusing, and then they have the Quadra-Track 2 and the Quadra-Drive 2. The Drive 2 is the hot one. So the Drive 2 is the one that is going to be on the Trailhawk model with the rear ELSD, so limited slip rear. So that's kind of your sweet off-road all-wheel drive system. So, but I think it's going to be smoother than a Wrangler for sure, just in the sense it has a normal conventional all-wheel drive system. I think it will be better because the Grand Cherokee is such an important SUV for the brand, not just Jeep, but Stellantis as a whole. Yes. I think the current Grand Cherokee, which has been around for a decade, is still carrying Stellantis as a brand. Like, obviously Ram is super important too. Wrangler is super important, but the Grand Cherokee is the oldest model that is still really relevant in terms of sales because they're still in their segment, which is the mid-sized non-luxury SUV. They're still like number 4, or they're consistently in the top 5 in the States.
I mean, okay, looking at a current Grand Cherokee, you don't think it's 10 years old though.
You don't, right? It still looks good. It still drives good too.
It aged very well. It's a very pretty vehicle overall. It's handsome. It drives well, like you said. There's enough space, but you do feel like it's a little bit older because it is a little bit more compact on the inside. But I have no problems with the current Grand Cherokee. This just elevates that, and it also elevates the brand. I mean, that's where they're going, right? The Grand Wagoneer is to compete against not a Tahoe, not a Denali, but it's to compete against the Navigator and the Escalades.
So reading through the press release, one of the funniest things I found was they're always like, this is the blah, blah, blah in class, blah, blah, blah in class. But they consider themselves to be in the class with cars like the Highlander, the Traverse, the Atlas, and these are very much pedestrian car-based crossover vehicles. The Grand Cherokee is still very much a traditional SUV with really good ground clearance, but not that much interior volume. But they talk about how we're the only ones in our class with sway bar disconnects. Like, okay, but you're comparing yourself with a Subaru Ascent or a Mazda CX-9. Those cars have no business in sway bar disconnects.
Well, let's think about this. If I had a Mazda CX-9 with the new off-road mode that you can press a button for, it's very, very good, and I got disconnecting sway bars, how far would I get off-road?
Exactly. They're like, we're the only one with air suspension. Like,
I mean, let's be honest. I think the Grand Cherokee, I mean, if you are looking at an actual competitor, Land Rover Discovery.
Yeah, you got to go with like
Right.
the premium brands because, and it's not just in terms of the size, it's the price because a loaded, not even that loaded Grand Cherokee, any Grand Cherokee is going to be over $60,000. Whereas you can't like you can top out one of these similar in-class cohorts like a Pathfinder, a Highlander, and they top out in the 50s.
Yeah.
So it's not really in the same class. And Jeep knows this. Jeep knows they're moving up market with the Wagoneer is very clearly a step up market, right? They want to compete with Escalade. So it's not so much that what type of brand this vehicle is in, so much as we're just directly competing with the Escalade. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think about my brand. You may think we make tractors and Jeep Compass, Jeep Patriots.
They want you to forget about those.
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, your brand doesn't matter. As long as the product is there and it can compete. Because guess what? The brands that was what shot the domestic luxury brands in the foot back in the 90s, the 2000s, is that they weren't really that much better, right? You compare like a 01 Escalade with a 01 Yukon, and it's like, what's the difference?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing with some dressing,
with a different grill, with some more chrome.
Yeah,
and it's the same for Lincoln, right? And Lincoln is still kind of struggling with that, we can see. And Jeep just comes in here. We don't need a luxury brand, a luxury dedicated dealer network. We're just gonna do it.
We're just gonna do it,
and it elevates the brand, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love what they're doing, and I think we're so overwhelmed with really desirable Jeep SUVs right now. But I love it.
We certainly
I want them all. Like, there's something to like about all of them. I don't want to own one necessarily because I still don't trust Stellantis to make a good, long-lasting, reliable vehicle. But they're all so delicious in their own way.
So I was just actually sharing this with Justin earlier today. Stellantis actually emailed me this morning saying that the Grand Wagoneer is available to book here in Vancouver, and I was actually super excited because the Grand Wagoneer, I mean, it's not a vehicle that I would want because it's $100,000 SUV, and I don't have that kind of money. But it's a vehicle I really want to get into because of just the presence that it has. I don't need a 6.4 liter V8, but I want a 6.4 liter V8.
Yeah, and man, that is a good looking SUV. Truck. I don't know. People call. I don't know where we draw the line anymore. Like I had someone pull up with a Santa Fe and refer to it as his truck. So it's like I don't know. Well, but at Grand Wagon, that is a slick SUV.
It's whatever you want to call it. It's
whatever you want to call it. It's sweet. But I think this Grand Cherokee. Okay, so back to the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk model, which you can get as both a normal Trailhawk or a Trailhawk 4xe. The 4xe gets the blue tow hooks. The regular one gets red tow hooks. 11.3 inch ground clearance max because with the air suspension on the regular one, and then the 4xe, I guess because of the batteries, it's a little bit lower, slightly about 0.4 inch lower, half an inch lower. 18 inch wheels, 18 inch all terrains. Looks like again the Goodyear Wrangler. Looking at the tread, I think it's the Wrangler. What is it called again?
The
territory. Yeah. Looks like we're seeing that tire again. So definitely doing something right there. I had someone. People still ask for the KO2s. Like, I don't know if people realize KO2, like the previous generation Grand Cherokee, has been around for a decade. And it has a distinctive look and people want it. But as far as like how good of a tire it is in the dry, wet, or any objective measure, it's really not competitive anymore. And they're the most expensive, and they have a lot of quality control issues. Do not look at a KO2. Like if you follow Kicking Tires, I will give you good tire advice for every now and then, because we sell a lot of tires, and KO2 is, I know, one of the biggest chains in Lower Mainland does not sell KO2s because of their quality control issues. They do not balance is basically the issue. At least in the last year, we've had a lot of issue with KO2 not balancing. Like you're lucky if you can get 3 to balance okay, and then 1 will need like 10 ounces of weights, like 3 pounds of weights on a wheel. Yeah, don't expect a smooth ride with the new KO2s. Well, quote unquote.
I think the KO2 nameplate, it's kind of like Kleenex.
That's
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people's like, oh, I want an off-road tire, and everyone knows the KO2 because of their past, so everyone just wants it.
Yeah, I'm just glad to see the market evolve, because I think when this generation Wrangler first came out, we did see KO2s on them, but we've evolved past that now. So Jeeps, yeah.
So okay, we got a relatively new Wrangler, I think 2 years ago or something like that. 3 years ago now.
2019. 2018 and a half, I think.
And then we got the Grand Wagoneer. We got the Wagoneer. We got a brand new Cherokee or Grand Cherokee and Grand Cherokee L. So next, they're going to, like, they updated the Compass interior, which to me tells me that they're probably not going to update that for a little bit. I think the next car, it's going to be their Cherokee. And it's going to be important because if they put a hybrid system in it, which I'm sure they will, it's RAV4 versus Cherokee. That's going to be important. And if they do a mini version of, you know, what this looks like, because the Grand Wagoneer and this looks very similar. I would assume the Cherokee will look kind of similar to that rather than the Fiat looking thing that they currently have.
And that's the beauty of Jeep's design language, is that even if you look at that freshly facelifted the Compass, you can still see a lot of that DNA. And it's not just the grille, it's everything about it. Like that looks like a Jeep, this looks like a Jeep. And that's, again, I always bring up Hyundai in that conversation, is that they don't know how to design a car. They know how to design, like, kind of, they have their ideas, but they cannot design one cohesive brand. And Jeep kills it with the branding. Ironically, the most un-Jeep looking Jeep is the Wrangler, which is the most Jeep you can Jeep. Right? Like that is the definitive Jeep. Let's talk about interior a little bit. We've seen some pictures of the interior. We've seen Grand Cherokee L and whatchamacallit, the Wagoneer already. I like the passenger screen. It's got a 10.25-inch screen on the passenger side, so they get to fiddle with their own entertainment stuff. The back seat, if you get one of the higher trims, will get the rear entertainment screen with the Fire TV. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, the Fire Stick thing.
Yeah, so it's basically got Fire integrated into the rear entertainment screens, which is awesome. You had that on the minivan, right?
Yes, the Pacifica.
Yeah, so
I'm sure it's very similar, but I'm sure this is updated as well.
Yeah, and then supposedly the Uconnect 5 is 5 times faster than last generation, which I didn't think was that bad.
It wasn't, but the new Uconnect, it's
even better. Like
it was in the Pacifica, and I loved it in there. It was really good system.
Yeah, so they are really nailing it with a lot of, like, you want this. Like, it's not just so, you know, when we talk about a brand, okay, let's bring back Hyundai to the discussion. Is Hyundai always brings a lot to the table in terms of checking off, you know, whatever it might be. You know, having air conditioned seats in like a sub $30,000 car. That's I think they're the only ones that really do that. And they offer like heated steering wheel at a very low price point, heated rear seat at a really low price. They will check off a lot of boxes. I find that's their tactic. But Chrysler, Stellantis, they like to just put really good, attractive initial quality stuff. I think like you look at the materials, they all look good. The screen, everything you touch it, everything feels good. But then usually they mess up with the overall long-term
I know what you mean,
durability.
Yeah.
That's kind of where Stellantis usually falls flat, and that's why I've always kind of worried about picking one up. But man, they kill it in initial quality. Like
They do.
It's again, it's so delicious, this car. Like everything they come out with, you want it so bad. And yeah.
No, absolutely. Actually got an email just now from one of my favorite automakers, Genesis.
Yeah.
So, hush you. Before we go into the next thing that's actually on the list, I want to show you some photos that Genesis has emailed.
Yeah.
So this is the GV60. So the email came in saying Genesis premieres GV60, a luxury EV that delivers on interactive mobility. What does that even mean? I have no idea. There's a very big blurb that comes through. Here's what you need to do, or here's what you need to know. There are 3 models. There's a standard model with rear drive and all-wheel drive, and there's a performance model. I think these are in. These are in kilowatts because it doesn't make sense if it's
Horsepower.
If it's in horsepower, because it's 168. 168 horsepower it's too little. So 168 kilowatts is 225 horsepower. So that's the base model. You get 225 horsepower. With the all-wheel drive, that's 234 kilowatts. That's 313 horses. And then you can get the performance model. The performance model in sports mode gives you 429 horsepower, but in boost mode, that gets you 482 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque.
You mean N grin shift mode?
And
see, I was just talking about how Jeep, a traditionally off-road brand, kind of delve into luxury. And then we were talking about the GV60, which is kind of the most Genesis, like based on the exterior design specifically. That doesn't look kind of like
it definitely doesn't look like any current Genesis sets.
Yeah, it looks more like a something,
a Kia,
a Kona or a Soul, like something related to that.
Yeah.
Does not look like a premium vehicle. And then here they go with their press photos showing it bombing through the desert. And it's like, that is not on brand for Genesis.
Actually, no, the GV80 press photos has the exact same thing. They are bombing through the desert. I don't know who's doing it, but
is that the one where Tiger Woods rolled over on?
Yeah, that's. Hey, thanks to Genesis, he's still alive. All right. Yeah, the photos. I mean, I'm still not too sure about the GV60 in terms of how it looks overall. But these are the specs that I mentioned today. Those are all the specifications. Apparently, are for the Korean market only, and international market features are to be determined. So we don't know exactly what it's going to be like, if it's going to have those 3 types of models. So standard rear drive, standard all-wheel drive, and performance all-wheel drive models. But I guess we'll see in the future. Looks kind of cool, I guess. In terms of range, let's see if it has it on the press release. Powered by a dedicated EV platform that maximizes driving range and performance. Fantastic. So the base model, which has the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, has a range of about 450 kilometers, whereas the one with more power, you're looking at about 360.
I don't know. The GV60 to me looks like a car that you. Speaking about dinner parties, going back to that idea, this is a car that you always have to explain yourself, right? Why you bought this car. That is the problem. If you pick up a Z06, no one's asking you why you bought a Z06. But you have to explain yourself why you got a GV6.
But, okay, so a Genesis is easy to explain. Here in Canada, anyways. Okay, so I can explain that.
I understand. You don't need to explain a GV80 to me.
No. I'm going to explain it to the audience here, all right? In Canada, for Genesis brand, first 5-year full maintenance is included. So you call Genesis, they come and pick up your car, they do the service, whatever they need to do, they return the car. If that service takes a while, you can ask for a loaner. The loaner has to be your vehicle or better. So if you bring in a GV60, they're going to bring you a GV70, GV80, G90, whatever it's going to be, or better. They will never downgrade you. And that's something that BMW can't offer. That's something Mercedes can't offer. That's something that Porsche can't offer. So that is pretty cool. And that is something that, you know, if I was to spend $70,000 on a luxury vehicle, it'll be nice to have.
Yeah. It's really just because it's cheaper.
You're not wrong.
I don't know if the engineering behind the cars are like anything cutting edge.
No.
And like I get the Ioniq, I get the Ioniq 5, the Kia, what's that cool
EV6.
EV6, but the GV60
well, it's the same platform. They moved it to Genesis and they thought that was a good idea.
I don't know.
Well, let's move on. More electrical news.
Here's other luxury electric news, but like actual like luxury.
This
right?
is
not the GV60 that
this
looks
is
like
old-fashioned luxury.
Yeah, not the tarted up Kona N or Kona Electric that the GV60 is, but Rolls-Royce, like the Kleenex again of luxury cars. I don't think they'll appreciate that.
No,
because they're tuning in to kicking tires on a regular.
The head guy. They're like, oh man, I don't like these kicking
harsh
tires.
critics. we won't give them press cars.
They don't have
new project or new project, whatever you want to call it, called the Spectre.
Not related to 007,
but possibly. Who knows? Rolls-Royce called it apparently. So that the thing is, Rolls-Royce, this is their. It should be coming in about 2 years. Mm-hmm. It's a fully electric model, and it's going to be their own architecture. So it's not going to be hand-me-down BMW iX or whatever I architecture. It's a Rolls-Royce through and through, and they're saying that also by 2030 that all of their models are going to be full electric. Which it's you get that from the rest of the market, but not a company that's still using their 6 3/4
V12. Do you get 6 3/4 batteries after? Like that it's 6 3/4 V12.
3/4 kilowatts. Yeah, like they'll be like 67.5 kilowatt hour.
It's a legend, right? For not only Rolls-Royce, but for Bentley, because that's what they shared.
Yeah.
But that 6 3/4 means a lot to the brand. Yeah. I'm just wondering if they'll try to implement that somewhere into their electric vehicle.
I don't know, but as far as electric, it just makes perfect sense. We've gotten there. A few things about this car. It doesn't need crazy range, I feel like. because
No.
and it won't give you crazy range because it's going to weigh a ton. EVs are heavy enough as is, and Rolls Royce are heavy enough as is.
Yeah.
You combine an immovable object and an unstoppable force, and you get like it will weigh like a small planet.
It's gonna weigh literally as much as a bus.
Yeah, it's gonna be heavy for sure. So it's not gonna get crazy good range for the power. And Rolls Royce is not big on like 0 to 60. You know, it's not Tesla where they're trying to do a sub 2 second 0 to 60, right? It's got to be comfortable. It's got to be quiet, and electric makes a lot of sense for that. And yeah, I think as far as range, it doesn't really matter, but do expect it to be not as competitive on that sense. But Rolls Royce is not about competition, right? It's that the whole brand is, it's all about just making the best luxury sedan or SUV or coupe that they can. And apparently Rolls-Royce predicted that the founder or something, what did the press release say? They said they over a century ago they predicted that they would be full electric. So now they are full electric. Like that's kind of cool too.
Yeah. I think they're going to tune the throttle really well. Like it's going to have the latest technology in terms of like motor. So it's going to have a lot of power. But what's going to happen? It cannot
have that aggressive regen.
Well, what's going to happen is when you floor it, like, you know, on a lot of cars, like when you floor it, that 0 to 60 is probably like the fastest part. But once you're like above 100, it slows down. I think what they're going to tune is they're going to have quite a linear kind of acceleration throughout, because they don't exactly, they don't want you to feel like you're being completely smothered in your seat, because that's not what Rolls-Royce is about. It's about being smooth, and they're going to tune like the 0 to 60 to be not slow, but slower than it can be, but give you all the power afterwards. So that way you can accelerate to Autobahn speeds or whatever you need speeds that you need to be, but still be super comfortable.
Yeah, I love that, because it's like the anti-Tesla electric vehicle, right?
Right.
Fit and finish. You have two sides of the spectrum, right? You got Rolls-Royce, and then you got Tesla way at the bottom of the market. like no argument there. I don't think any company has worse fitting panels than Tesla today.
Oh, okay. I was like, Saturn back in 19 whatever will disagree.
Maybe in the 90s, but yeah. If you had a time machine, but by today's standards, like that, you have the two extremes of fit and finish. And then you have kind of, you know, both call themselves a luxury. Like a Model S is kind of a luxury competitor. It's always meant to kind of take people's attention away from your traditional Luxo barge type vehicles. And now that's why Rolls-Royce is in here, I think.
Yeah. No, it definitely makes sense.
This is what, you know, obviously we have the EQS, you know, and every review of the EQS is like, this is so much better because it's quiet. So I'm really curious how the tuning goes.
Yeah, it's a better luxurious like type of environment than the regular S-Class, even though the regular S-Class has a lot of the features that the EQS has. Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, Subaru dropped a video for their brand new Solterra. So this is the Toyota BZ4 EV, whatever they're calling it.
It's a Sun Earth.
And I mean, they dropped a few things here. So the first thing I want to take a look at is their rear end. On the rooftop, there's split spoiler Type R, Civic Type R, or Civic hatch kind of winglets on top. They're super weird, but I like it. It's super funky. The glossy black plastic that's underneath the rear taillight, that I don't know. I don't know about that part so much. There's no front end photos. Just the headlight photo, and the headlight's also surrounded by black plastic. It's definitely different. You can kind of make out the front end. I think it looks quite good. it basically looks like a RAV4 except styled up a little bit. That's basically what it looks like. Quite interested in this, of course. Toyota Subaru collaboration. It's the next thing for the brands to have a full EV in their model range. It's going to be. It has to be pretty successful for them. I think it looks fine. I don't think there's any problems that I can see, but we'll see it in the flesh in the future, and make our full judgment then. But that D pillar is completely RAV4.
It's so
maybe just
Toyota,
sloped in. Yeah.
Like this still frame that you have where you can't see the badging, like that's a Toyota.
Yeah, the front 3/4.
Even the fog light placement relative to the headlights is very Toyota.
So what I'm kind of thinking in here is like, what does Subaru do? Because in the collaboration with the BRZ and GT86 FRS thing, right? Subaru did the engine. That was the biggest part for them. They did the horizontally opposed engine, but they used Toyota's injection. They also did a lot of the chassis tuning. And doesn't actually Subaru make them for Toyota as well? I could be wrong on that. But
yes, Subaru builds all the Toyota 86 is stamped Subaru everywhere, kind of like the Supra is stamped BMW everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And the FRS's suspension was already existent with the STI at that time. So like the rear suspension, the arms are the same.
Oh.
The rear arms are the same as STI. The what do you call it, double wishbone and strut setup is also very much similar to the STI setup. So I think we'll see chassis design from Subaru, hopefully, because Toyota can't make a chassis. Like they have not proven me. Even you can make as many Apex editions and GR this and that, but I'm convinced that Toyota cannot make a good handling car. As much as I love Toyotas and I only drive Toyotas,
you're currently driving a BMW, aren't you?
Oh, now I am.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, excited to see more information on this. I'm curious what would happen. But I think that wraps it up nicely to our review this week. The Mercedes-Benz AMG
ad for Mercedes. Mercedes.
It had to happen. It's perfect. It's the GLA 45. So the GLA 45 is the smallest, but with the biggest motor. It's bonkers. Let me just say that it's absolute bonkers. 380 horsepower, I think it was. 382. 0 to 60 time in about 4 seconds. 4MATIC Plus with an active rear diff. There's no drift mode. Not that I saw, anyways.
I like this.
But it's a perfect hot hatch that Mercedes doesn't make. That they don't call a hatch. They call it an SUV. But it's a hatch. It's a really, really good car. I don't think it's the car for most people, because if you want a fast, small Mercedes, the GLA 35 would be sufficient, because the 35 gives you 300 horsepower already. Having this much more, like, yes, it is a whole lot faster. Yes, the engine is different. Yes, this is hand built by some dude or dudette. But is it worth it? The extra, I think, $7,000 to go from 35 to 45. That's the debate there, right? I mean, the 35 that I had before, the GLB 35, I thought it was a great vehicle already. And the GLB gives me better proportions as well.
Where is the GT wing?
That's an optional AMG aerodynamics package that this vehicle didn't have. You get the GT wing on the back, and you get canards on the front. And I mean, I'm sure people remember from the old GLA 45, and I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it looks good on the car. I think
It looks so wild, though.
it looks so childish. That's what it looks
That's
like.
the point of this. This whole car looks childish. Even without the wing, it looks childish. So
I think okay, so because this one has the AMG Night package and is blacked out, I don't think it looks that childish. I think it looks fine because it just looks like it's kind of subdued.
yeah,
But with the canards in the front and the wing on the back, it's hard to.
it's so ridiculous. Can you get it in like bright yellow AMG yellow?
I'm not sure. I know that like
With
the
that
CLA,
wing.
you can get it in the bright yellow, but I don't know if you can get it in a bright yellow for the GLA.
You know, I know we both prefer the GLB just because it's kind of quirky and like practical, but the lines on the GLA do come together really nicely on this 45. Like the ride height and just the roof line, the window, everything is it's pretty nice.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong.
It doesn't look there's nothing awkward about the way this car looks.
No.
Minus the GT wing if you have that package.
It's a smooth body line Mercedes that's reminiscent of like the GLE and the GLS. The GLB, it kind of has like GLS and maybe G-Wagon kind of look because it's a little bit more boxy. And in terms of colors,
you can get champagne but not yellow. What the
you can get rose gold metallic. You can get this Patagonia red. And then you get all hues of black and gray.
Oh, I noticed Mercedes is doing the NKN TO3 thing now, where they added a ring in the
on the wheels. Yeah,
on the wheel. I saw that on the C63 like a few weeks ago, and I thought it kind of looked weird. But yeah,
that's
it's
really
just a lot of shades of gray.
It is a lot of shades,
and then red.
You can get also a matte gray, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's always a good choice.
A matte colored car comes with a lot of attention of like taking care of that color. So if you're the type of person that, you know, if a bird takes a poop on your car and you're like, oh, it's fine, I'll wash it off later, do not buy a matte colored car. The champagne looks great though. Rose gold metallic.
I don't think I want to see like, you know when they talk about like, oh, this air cooled 911, there were only 6 in this configuration. I want to know how many people got a GLA AMG 45 with that rose gold
with
color.
The rose gold.
Because it's like, okay, so if you have money to buy a GLA, you can go way higher.
Yeah.
And like typically if you're willing to spend 70,000 if not more on a compact SUV that has some crazy motor in it, you're willing to spend, you can afford to go higher. So I think like the people that can afford something so extravagant, they don't go for the GLA typically. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone wants that weird of a color in that weird of a configuration of a car. I just want to know how many they will build in that color. I mean, enough market research that said, hey, let's offer this color.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so they must think someone is going to buy it, but I want to know who, because to me, even yellow or green would make more sense than that rose gold.
You're not wrong. GLB also has that rose gold and the red. But the
red I can see. The red,
also,
I don't think there's anything weird about the red.
There's also a galaxy blue, which is actually pretty nice. I think the one I had was denim blue. Yeah, it was.
Ooh.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no crazy yellow like the CLA 45.
Or the A45, because all the press photos were in that crazy yellow.
Well, you can't get an A45 in Canada.
Yeah, no.
You can only get the A35, but you can also get that in the sun yellow. Oh, you can also get an A35 with the aerodynamics package.
Oh, there you go. So
there you go.
Just like the one in the press photos.
That's exactly a GLA 35, but if you want it lowered.
If you want lower with a slightly smaller truck.
Yeah, there you go. A35.
Filling in all the niches of your hatchback, boy racer.
All the needs.
Yeah.
I think that's really it for this week. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week with some more automotive news.